Hey guys, so it's going to be a quick lecture video to finish off notes number 4 on immigration. Today is a really rainy day and I know that some of you are not going to be here, and since it's the end of the unit I want to make sure you don't fall behind since we have a benchmark next week. So I thought I'd make this quick little lecture to finish off the notes just in case you weren't here. So the notes that we're talking about is immigration notes. Now yesterday what we covered is we covered the reaction to immigrants, which is where we started talking about the anti-immigration sentiment that was getting bigger and bigger. Again, sentiment means feelings. There's starting to be a lot more feelings against immigrants. They didn't like that they brought their culture, their religion, their language. One of the biggest reasons is just that they got anger toward them is because working. They saw immigrants as going against them, especially when they're trying to form a union. They would go work really long hours on jobs, which meant it made it harder for them to ask to work less hours when immigrants would work long hours. They also took really low wages, and that meant that that they would take any job for any reason. And Americans who were trying to fight for getting together as a union so they could get better working conditions or better pay were being hurt by them, and they turned their anger toward them. A movement arose of this feelings, that anti-immigrant feelings, called the nativist movement. People who wanted to protect themselves against immigrants. Basically, natives are people who were born here, and their attitude is, you guys just don't understand us. You don't understand the way we're trying to do things. So they blame them for everything, like higher crime, like unemployment. And the basic idea of the nativist movement is, it's all your fault, it's all your fault, it's all your fault. If you would just go away, if you immigrants would just go away, our society would get so much better. They started restricting immigrants in certain places where they couldn't get certain jobs, they couldn't live certain places, even going to certain schools, they wouldn't let them do it. And anger started to rise up, all that sentiment rise up, where eventually it started getting physical, where it was starting to become common that immigrants would get beat up because of this anger that they felt, especially when they lost a job because an immigrant took the job and worked the really long hours with the lower wages. So it led to the Americanization movement. The idea that the people who lived here said, you immigrants just don't get it. You do a lot of things that really upset us, and that if you just knew what it was to be more American, then you would understand why you're upsetting us and you'd stop doing those things. So it was trying to get immigrants to be more Americanized. By what? Any classes that would be taught only in English. We're going to cover later on that there were community centers that offer classes to teach them in English or to teach them certain things in society, but they had to be taught in English. Oftentimes, employers forced their workers that they had to go take classes in English in the American culture. So not only did they have to go work those long hours, they have to go and take classes on how to speak English and what it was to be an American. And even the religion had a problem. They wanted them to be more like the Protestant religion. Instead of many who were Catholic, they wanted them to switch over to that, to Protestantism. Their attitude was, if you are like us, if you talk like us, if you practice the religion we do, then you understand us and you stop doing things that irritate us. Now, this rise was because, why did this happen? Why did this Americanization movement happen? Simply because there was a lot of immigrants here, and a lot of those feelings against them started to rise up as you got closer to 1900. Native-born people here wanted to eliminate how big of the cultural differences there were, that their culture that they brought from their country should stay at their country and they should start adopting American culture. So you need to be more Americanized. And straight out, just racism and discrimination, that they looked at these people less than them, and those people would be lucky to be like a regular native-born American, so start being like us. Results, immigrants started feeling that they resented the fact that they had to give up their culture. Why do I have to change who I am in order to be an American? Why can't I be both? So there was this push from immigrants thinking, I don't have to change because there's nothing wrong with my culture, my language, my religion. It's just you don't like it, and I'm not going to change that. So all this anger is going to keep on boiling up as we get into the late 1800s and into the early 1900s, where government started to listen to this anger and they started passing immigration laws. One of the first big ones was the Chinese Exclusion Act. Now, this act was as a result of us having a lot of Chinese people here. Now, we were the reason why there were a lot of Chinese people here, because when we were building the railroads in the West Coast, we wanted them to come. We even went to Chinese government and asked them to send them over here, and they did in big numbers. But once the railroads were built, our attitude is, all right, so when are you guys going home? And their response is, we are home. Our kids were born here. We've been here for 15 years. So we're not going home. So the United States government said, all right, fine. If you're not going home, then no more Chinese for 10 years. Chinese Exclusion Act, first major law that says no more Chinese for 10 years. And you see this in many of the political cartoons of the time. This one right here shows this is supposed to be Uncle Sam, and the idea of kicking a Chinese person out and he's getting onto the boat and going over here. Even the sun is supposed to represent that this is the direction of going to China, that you guys should be running away from here. We don't want you here anymore. So it severely decreased immigration into the U.S. In 1882, they passed a law basically aiming at all immigrants that if you're going to live here, fine, but you're going to have to pay for it. Made it at every immigrant had to pay a tax to the U.S., 50 cents per person. So that meant that if you had a family of 5, 2 parents and 3 kids, you had to pay $2.50 with the amount of money that we talked about that they made. That was a good chunk. And the idea was, well, if you don't like it, then go home. All right. Naturalization Act of 1906. Before this, whenever they went to Ellis Island, they became legal residents, and then they were citizens pretty quickly after that. So then they could vote, and if you vote, you have power. Well, then they said, well, you know what? We're going to change the process. We're going to make it more difficult for immigrants to become U.S. citizens. One, you're going to have to show that you have a basic understanding of English. Basically, if you can't show that you understand English, you can't be a citizen, and you can't vote, and you have no power. And the other one, the harder one, is that you got to take a test on U.S. government and history. And this is basically still our system today for anybody who wants to be a citizen. They have to go do an interview in English, and then they have to pass a test. If they do that and they go through the process, they could become a U.S. citizen. So this law has been around for 120 years or so. The next one was aimed at another Asian group who came in a huge number, and that was Gentlemen's Agreement Act of 1907, restricted Japanese from coming into the U.S. But only mainly laborers, as in the workers, regular workers. If you were a professional, you could still come. They still wanted the good immigrants. They just didn't want the cheap and low-class immigrants from Japan. And again, it was passed because there was a lot of anti-Japanese anger, a lot of anti-Japanese that why are they here? Why are there so many of them? They need to go home. So they passed this limiting immigration from Japan. So the Chinese Exclusion Act, 10 years. For the Chinese, Gentlemen's Agreement Act, they did it for the Japanese. Now, the last one is the big one, National Origins Act of 1924. It is severely going to limit the immigration of people coming in from Europe, especially from Southern and Eastern Europe. This is where they were coming from huge numbers, from Italy, Russia, Germany, Greece. Now there's going to be a big cutoff in how many they could send. And the idea was basically that all these people used to come, and we used to let them all in, and now Uncle Sam is saying, only a very small percentage of you are going to actually make it to the U.S. So this is going to severely limit it. This was another political cartoon dealing with the Naturalization Act, where basically now Uncle Sam is telling, hey, it's the land of the free, and you could get here, but only if you pass the literacy test and actually could learn English. So now they're putting up walls and protecting how many people could come. So again, all these laws basically are anti-immigration. When before it was like, send them all, we need them all because we need them for workers. Now there's a lot of laws protecting them. This immigration system right here, that created by here, which is 101 years ago, is still basically the system that we have now, where every year, every country around the world has a number of how many they can send legally, and when they don't send them illegally, when they send them legally, that's it. You're not supposed to send any more for the rest of the year. Wait till next year. But people still come. So this is also the birth of people coming here without permission, which is the birth of illegal immigration that we've had for 101 years because of the Natural Origins Act of 1924. All right, hope that helped. Thank you. Have a good day.